Welcome to Franchise Spotlight, where we showcase unique franchise opportunities that give you the chance to build wealth, create a legacy, and take greater control of your future. Today, we're exploring Scenthound, a franchise that turned routine dog care into a membership business with monthly recurring revenue. Let's put the spotlight on Scenthound. I'm Scott Elliott, franchise consultant and founder of New Chapter Consulting, and my guest today is Tony Nicholson. Tony's the vice president of franchise development at Scenthound, and he has spent over 2 decades in franchising. This has included time as a multi-unit franchisee with Anytime Fitness. He's moved into senior development roles across many growing brands, and today he's a multi-unit franchisee of Scenthound itself in South Florida. Tony, welcome to the show today.
Awesome, Scott. Thank you. Thank you for that nice intro. Excited to be here. Excited to connect today. And yeah, thank you.
Great to see you too. Yeah, I've really been eager to interview you, Tony. I mean, I've heard you present several times, and every time I get a new energy behind Scenthound because I love how you frame it up and how you answer the question. So I'm excited to present this to my listeners as well. So let's start at sort of the beginning, Tony. When people hear pet grooming, right? You might picture a dog getting a haircut. Scenthound is so much more than that, right? Could you walk us through what the Scenthound franchise concept is? Like, what is the customer experience and what outcome is actually being delivered to a customer of Scenthound?
Yeah, Scott. So if you look at the pet spend space today in the US, it's a great big massive category. As you mentioned earlier, I grew up in fitness. I was a multi-unit fitness franchisee. Love the space. It's in my DNA. It's in my blood. 30 billion dollar industry. 18% of Americans work out. Compared to the pet industry today in the U.S., the pet industry is a $150 billion industry. So 5x from the world
Amazing.
that I came from. And if
Mhm.
18% of Americans work out, about half or 50% of households have a dog. And the cool thing about the relationship between humans and dogs, Scott, is that it has drastically changed and evolved and morphed since when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, right? So today, one of the things that we say in the space, dogs are family. So how does that relate to the scent hound model? Well, I'm going to make a quick statement, and the statement might throw you for a bit of a loop, but
Okay,
I
I'm ready.
promise I'll come back. I'll come back from it.
Okay.
Traditional grooming in the US is a commodity. And what I mean by that statement, I live in Minneapolis. So in Minneapolis here, I could close my eyes, you could blindfold me, and I could fall back on 10 to 15 brands that do the exact same thing in the traditional grooming scope. What is traditional grooming? I have a dog named Maisie. She's a 7-year-old golden doodle. She's great. She's one of my kids. And the traditional grooming concept is all about the look and smell of my dog.
Mhm.
I can bring her to a groomer and she can get a haircut and she can get a bath. Now, I'm certainly not discounting the value of a haircut and a bath. Research proves that as dogs look and smell better, we as dog parents, we want to be around them. We want to love on them. We want to cuddle with them. And so, there's value there. And Scenthound's value and mission statement is we want to enrich the connection between people and their dogs. So there's
That's
value there.
good.
But
Mhm.
as we get into the Scenthound model, only 10% of what I do is classified as, I'm gonna use air quotes, grooming-esque. And the reason why I say grooming-esque is that when you think about traditional groomers, they're very expensive, they're hard to find, and if I can't find enough of them, I can't scale and open up multiple locations. And the big thing, which is why we at Scenthound wanted to morph away from traditional grooming, because we were a traditional groomer 20 years ago, is
Mhm.
that the Scott the groomer, who's got amazing scissors and everyone's lining up to see him, 9.5 out of 10 times on a Wednesday, he would wake up and have an epiphany. And the epiphany was, well, Tony, who owns the business, he's cool. He's a nice guy, but I'm really the secret sauce with these scissors. So what if I open up my own shop? I wonder if the clientele would follow. They did. And so that
Mhm.
didn't work. And so today at Scenthound 2026, Only 10% of what we do is in that grooming-esque space with a haircut and a bath. Whereas in
Okay.
reality, the 90%, going back to your original question, the
Mhm.
value that we bring, the customer and consumer and dog parent experience, I can make your dog healthier. So I'll make your dog healthier, and a healthy dog is a happy dog, and this is the coup de grace. This is the icing on the cake. If I can make your dog healthier over time, it's not going to happen right away. It's going to take 3, 4, 6, 10 months. If I can make
Mhm.
your dog healthier, what if, Scott, I had a mechanism in place to help you and your dog live a longer life? Your dog. What if I
Mhm.
had a way to extend their life cycle? And when I
Mhm.
say extend their life cycle, I don't mean a month or 6 weeks. What if I had a way to give you 3, 4, 5 years of additional time on this planet with your dog? If
Mhm.
that's something that you're curious about, with which we all are as dog parents, that's really what I'm doing at Scenthound.
Mhm. No, that's an incredible reframe when you think about
Yeah,
pet services.
yeah,
This really is. I mean, a lot of times people think pet health, you got to go to the vet or whatever, right? So no, that really is interesting. Now there are you touched on the fact there's a lot of pet grooming
yeah,
concepts. There's independent folks. There's a lot of franchises that do like mobile pet
mhm,
grooming and things like that. Um, what would you say besides just the fact that it's wellness oriented as opposed to just being 10% grooming? What are some of the differentiators from a business perspective of the Scent Hound model versus what other pet care franchises or other pet care businesses are offering? Like what would
yeah.
attract somebody here? Yeah.
Well, I'm going to pause that. So
Mhm.
one of the areas that I'd love to cover with you before we end today's quick session is I wanna unpack the fact that Scenthound is a membership model. So
Okay.
that's key. So I'm going to
Mhm.
put a little pin in that. But
Yeah, yeah.
in your last statement, you mentioned two really critical pieces. So I've got this really cool Venn diagram that shows Scenthound in the middle, and we're in this wide open blue ocean area, and then on the
Okay.
left side of the Venn diagram, which I only really overlap, let's call it maybe 10%. You've got the traditional groomers, you've got the big boxes like Petco and PetSmart, which are the physical brick and mortars, and then
Mhm.
there's a little dotted line to the digital folks, the Amazons and the Chewies, right? And then
Okay.
below that, you've got the mom and the pops, and then you've got the do-it-yourself folks. Well, I only really overlap about 10% of that side, because only 10% of what I do competes with traditional grooming. So
Mhm.
let's check that off the list. The big boxes like the Petcos and the PetSmarts, they do some of the things that we do from a traditional grooming standpoint. But in reality, they're hyper focused on product sales. They've got these great big
Sure.
massive boxes, massive warehouses, and they can give your dog a bath. They can kind of chop their way through their hair, but in reality, they really want to sell you a bunch of products. And there's nothing
Mhm.
wrong with that.
Yeah, yeah. It's a business.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. The mom and pops, they're fragmented. They're a little disorganized. They open up one day, close the next, a little flaky, hard to get in, kind of a jack of all trades. I don't really directly compete with that group. One last quick thing on the left side of the Venn diagram. I think that my biggest opportunity, and if I don't execute, really educating dog parents on the fact that I'm not a groomer, I'm not a spa, I'm more routine hygiene and wellness with a preventative twist. The do-it-yourselfers, that's a big opportunity, but if I don't execute and educate, I could miss out there. So that's one side.
Mhm.
You'd also
Mhm.
mention the vets, right? The whole
Mhm.
veterinarian
Sure.
space. What I do at Scenthound, think of what I do at Scenthound as more on the proactive, preventative side, meaning that because we're a membership model, my dog Maisie, she's got a membership. She comes into Scenthound roughly once every 30 days. She gets a bath. They trim her nails, they clean her ears, they high level brush or clean her teeth, they weigh her, they analyze her, and then this is where it gets really cool, Scott. The my dog Maisie goes in back, and the employee in the back takes out an iPad, and the
Mhm.
iPad now scans my dog in 6 key predictive areas. It's an acronym:
Okay. Okay.
skin, coat, ears, nails, teeth. So the acronym is SCENT. And then there's a
Okay.
silent G for the glands. The iPad now scores, grades, and quantifies each of those areas. And that information is now embedded into the mobile app for my dog's dashboard. So now I've got all those scores. from a one being not so great, a five being amazing. And if you're curious as to, well, Tony, how in the heck did you guys land on those areas, and why is this the formula for success? Well,
Mhm.
years ago when we were breaking away from the traditional grooming space that we grew up in, we had to hire scientists and vets and data experts and analysts and say, how do we know if a dog is healthy? Well, you improve those six areas. And so now, fast
Okay.
forward to 2026, we see 80,000 dogs a month. And as we come in and we score those areas, the goal is to say, well, Scott, when you brought your dog in 6, 8, 10 months ago, the scores were low, and that's okay. If you
Mhm.
notice now, by going back to the app, over time, those scores have gradually, slowly, organically, methodically gotten better. Now the science and data and research proves, Scott, your dog is getting healthier. And now that your
Mhm.
dog is at fours and fives, which are great scores, let's keep your dog there. Let's maintain those scores. Now, I come into Scenthound, and my dog has lost weight. There's a lump, a bump, or a rash. The scores are lower than we would like. We at Scenthound take a step back and say, look, as much as we're not groomers and this is not a spa experience, we're also not veterinarians. So
Mhm.
I can stay in my lane and do what's best for you and for your dog. Let's have you do one of two things. Log into the Scenthound mobile app where you can talk and communicate with a real live vet, or go back to Tony at Scenthound, who's working at the front, and he's going to recommend one or two local veterinarians you can take your dog to. So that's the thing that makes our brand pretty unique in every market throughout the US.
That's a very unique combination. Again, any strategic differentiator for any business has gotta be a unique combination of strengths, right?
Yeah.
And the things that you laid out, very different from what you find in other pet care concepts, whether it's independent businesses or in other pet care franchises. So what a
Agree.
nice, outline. Let's dive into a little bit. We'll dig deeper into the membership model, but the fact that we have a membership model, right? That's good. You have this wellness positioning, that's good, right?
Yeah.
But when you think about what type of owner succeeds here, like, do you got to be a
Yeah.
dog lover? I mean, is like if you
Love
don't
that.
love dogs, are you like I got to stay away from this business, or if you are a dog lover, are you automatically going to succeed in this business? Like, what does a strong scent hound franchisee actually look like?
Yeah, Scott, that is such a great question. So there's two quick things that I want to call out or maybe highlight from what you just mentioned. There's a big misnomer that, hey, Scott, I work for General Mills, I work for Target, I work for Best Buy corporate, and every Sunday night I get this pit in my stomach. I don't like what I do, but I've got a family. But at some point I would love to break away, do my own thing. I have an entrepreneurial flame and spirit. I want to work for myself. I want more
Mhm.
freedom and flexibility. But I've never been in franchising. I've never owned a business. I'm probably not a good fit. What I tell candidates when they say that is that you're probably the best fit. I love people that come from McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts and Anytime Fitness, but most of the folks that I have the pleasure and honor of working with don't come from small business ownership or franchising. I take whatever you've done in sales and marketing and your backgrounds, and I wrap a plan and a process and systems and a business coach and support, and I'm going to make you successful as long as you're willing to roll up your sleeves, get the work done. I do have an
Sure.
executive model, which we can also unpack that later. So that's one quick thought. The other thought is, which I've talked to a bunch of folks that say, Tony, I don't have a dog in my family. I'm not a dog parent. I'm not a dog whisperer. I don't I don't love I don't hate dogs, but just I'm probably not a good fit. I say, you know what? You don't have to be a dog whisperer, lover, or dog parent to be a franchisee. We take all kinds, right? Now, you shouldn't hate dogs and you shouldn't be allergic, probably, but with my
That's a good
executive
point.
model,
Mhm.
I'll help you find a manager. The manager will run the business. You can keep your W-2 and job for now, and then if and when the timing is right, we will craft and create a transition project management plan to get you into being a franchisee full time if you want that. And some folks say,
Mhm.
look, I've got a great job, I don't have the need. So that's one thing. But let me just quickly close the loop.
Mhm.
Although you don't have to be a dog lover or dog parent or dog whisperer to become a franchisee, full circle moment, the people that love dogs or love animals, because I was talking to a guy yesterday that said, Tony, I don't have a dog, but I'm a big cat person and I love animals. That's great. That's great. If you're passionate and empathetic around animals, and there's a little asterisk there, if you love dogs, that'll make you that much more successful. Just like I said, listen, if you're looking at me in a Dunkin' Donuts and a porta potty business, I don't really care which brand I join. I just want to make the most money. You can
Mhm,
join and you can probably be successful. But if you come to me and say, Tony, if I didn't make a dime today, but I'm making an impact and I love dogs and that group just warms my heart, um, what do you think I'm going to do? You're probably going to be one of the top 20% franchisees in our
mhm,
system,
mhm.
system wide. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate that context because it is. I mean, I've had a lot of conversations with people looking to start businesses, and I'm surprised at the number of people like who are dog owners who have said things like they kind of disqualify themselves by saying, "I like my dog, but I don't know if I like other people's dogs," right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And so it's very interesting dynamic. But I think what you said is great. I mean, there's an attractive business here for someone with good business sense. And
Yeah.
there's a attractive mission here for people who love animals and love the human dog bond. And if you've got one or the other or both, you've got the makings of a successful candidate here, right?
Yeah.
So
And Scott,
great.
listen, I mean, that's a fantastic point, and I want to call out one quick thing. When you look at franchising, and it, for anyone who finds this podcast today, whether it's on Scott's page or online through Google, um, call Scott, work with them,
Mhm,
find a brand, find a business. And there are almost 4,000 concepts in franchising: food, beverage, beauty, home services, fitness, the pet space. There are a lot of really good options out there. I think Scenthound is great, but if Scenthound's not the right fit, please work with Scott. Now, with that
mhm,
being said, I come from fitness. I saw that side. I saw that vertical. I saw that industry. I saw it flattening out. Whereas in the pet industry today, Scott, I see this amazing, what I call as hockey stick type of growth, right? And you work with a lot of great brands, and here's what I would tell your listeners is that um in my 24 years of doing this, I think there are three really safe verticals in franchising. And I'm going to put an asterisk.
mhm.
There's a need for, flooring and roofing and siding and mosquito spray and porta potties and
Sure.
laundromats. There's an asterisk for that. But what I tell a lot of my clients and candidates is that the three safest verticals from my perspective, businesses dealing with people's kids, people's pets, and people's parents or aging seniors. Because
Mhm,
look, there's a lot happening today in the world, right? The stock market is on a roller coaster.
mhm.
Fuel is at an all-time high. Spirit Airlines, people are still trying to figure
Right.
out Bitcoin. And so there's, global conflicts. There's a
Mhm,
lot that's happening. And when there's noise out there, sometimes consumers can say, I got my bag of money, I've got my 401k, I've got my nest egg. I'm going to take that thing and I'm going to hold it as close as I can to my vest. That's not great for consumer spend. Here's my point: regardless of what's happening in the space in the world today, people are going to take care of three categories: their kids, their
mhm,
pets, and their parents. And so,
mhm,
because of that, my business, what I do, especially with the health and wellness versus just grooming, my
mhm.
business is, I wouldn't say bulletproof. I think it's irresponsible. I'm resistant to all the things I mentioned. Amazon's not going to put me out of business, and AI is going to make what I do better versus being a threat.
So you talked a little bit about some of the ownership models, right? Because everybody wants to know, what does an owner's life look like if I become a Scenthound franchisee? And you mentioned two models, right? The hands-on, I'm an owner operator of a business, or an executive style owner. Tell us a little bit about what is a day in the life, in either model, like at a high level.
Yeah. So if I'm which just to kind of maybe set the table,
Mhm.
we've got 162 locations today,
Wow.
in 34 states plus DC. I've sold, myself and my team have sold over 450 licenses. One license represents one location. I think that in the next 5 to 6 years, my goal is to have 600 to 800 locations. I think ultimately the next 8, 9 years, I'll have about 1,000.
Okay.
With that being said, I've got roughly 90 franchisees today. So the dumb math is that the average Scent Hound franchisee will be a multi-unit owner. So let's just call it roughly 3.5 to 5 locations. I have a
Okay.
handful of folks that have 1 location, and then I've got folks that'll do 10, 15, 20 of these things, right?
Mhm.
And so the handful of folks that have 1 location, you're gonna be a little more of a hands-on operator. You're gonna go in Monday through Saturday, banker's hours, by the way,
Mhm.
9 to 5-ish, a little bit of a longer shift on Saturday, and you're gonna flip the lights on and you're gonna make the donuts, right? And how do you make the donuts? Well, it's a mixture of things. There's some marketing, there's some sales, there's some mentoring of your people, there's some scheduling, there's some billing, and then the manager slash franchisee slash owner operator is going to hire just a handful of people. Let's say to start 3.5 employees, and the three to three and a half
Mhm.
employees are going to be split in between folks who trim hair. We call it trim hair versus cutting hair because when you go to a groomer, they use scissors. We use
Mhm.
trimmers, clippers, and guards. And that's
Okay.
the big thing, which is why I don't designate my people as certified groomers. I mean,
Okay.
and for the record, out of the 90 million dogs in the U.S., less than 10% of dogs require a consistent haircut. So it's
I
not
saw
as
that.
big of
Yeah.
a thing as people think,
Yeah.
right? And then the
Yeah.
back room is really where I do most of my work. I've got tubs and I've got crates. It's where I wash dogs, I brush teeth, I trim and grind nails, I do blow dries, and so the manager, if that's the owner slash operator, he or she is going to be managing down to all of those elements of the day. And then here's
Mhm.
a cool thing: manage the manager, train the trainer concept. So if you're an owner operator, you're the manager, and then the train the trainer concept means that everyone from the trimmer to the person who's cutting brushing the nails, the teeth, the ears, doing the blow dry, everyone can do everyone else's other jobs. So if the person that's responsible for selling memberships or giving a bath, if they get hit by a bus or call in sick or quit,
Mhm.
you're not now stepping in and doing that. They're all cross trained. That's
Cross
the
training.
role as an owner operator if you're a little more hands on. And again, just to be very, very candid, that represents the very, very smallest percentage of franchisees. Where
Mhm.
most of my people come from, it's either 2A and 2B. And that's where I have a full-time job. I've got a W-2. Now I'm going to manage the manager. I'm going to hire a manager. Tony's going to help me find that person. They're going to get trained. They're going to get onboarded. And then the manager is now going to manage down to everything within the business. And then Scott, the franchisee who's got the executive model, you're going to open up your laptop on a Wednesday and say, how am I doing today? All your KPIs and metrics, sales,
Mhm.
retention. It's great that your manager got 100 leads last week, but they only closed 5. Might the manager do better, right?
Mhm.
MPI, all of your different scores, all of your Yelp scores. And so you'll know within a few minutes through some analysis just how healthy you are. I'm really good here. I'm okay. I'm not losing or winning here, but I'm okay. And man, do I stink here. This is my Herbie. Then I need to get to the front of the pack. And so now,
Mhm.
as that manage the manager model, you're now basically managing down the business. That's 2A. 2B is I've now quit my job in corporate America. I'm now running 4 or 5 Scenthound locations, but instead of me actually going into a center, making donuts on a Wednesday, I'm hovering around the business and I'm going out doing campaigns and I'm doing some community outreach and I'm checking in on my stores and my centers. So those are the 3 options I see with most of my people, Scott.
Okay. No, I think that's a nice clear delineation. Owner operator, 1 or 2 stores, hands-on. That's not the primary model, right? I mean, in many franchises, not for Scenthound, right? Many franchises are looking for the owner operator who will be the hands-on manager. That's an option certainly here, but you are really looking for executives of Scenthound empires, right? Small
Yeah.
empires. You
And just to classify something, when I'm classifying that executive play, the
Mhm,
executive play could be I've got a full-time job, and I'm still very much so involved. I'm just not
mhm,
physically there daily. I know my business.
100%.
I know my
Yeah,
stats.
yeah.
I know my metrics. And so that's the big thing. And then one thing I do want to call out is that I know that the unit economics for my business, and I can't say this is everyone's business, but for my business, this thing gets so much more attractive as you go from one to many. And I think a lot of people will go to, well, I have 3 of these things and I'm making X amount per year. Of course it's more attractive. Yes, that's just the tip of the iceberg. From an operational perspective, once you go from 1 to 3 to 5, instead of having one manager at each location or at each center, what if you
Mhm,
could have one regional manage all 3 of them? What if you can have less employees? What if you'll spend less on marketing, less on recruiting? You've got a built-in floater pool. So
mhm.
this thing does open up quite a bit more as you scale.
Mhm. No,
Yeah.
I appreciate you exploring that too because, this is a common myth in franchising. I hate the term semi-absentee because all businesses require a leader, right? And that
Yes.
leader needs to dedicate time to a business. So, it's really how you're spending your time. Owner operator, you might be managing a store, but as you become more of a manage the manager executive model, you're still spending hours in the business. Those hours are spent growing that business and managing and developing the people and ensuring the KPI. So I think you painted a real nice clear picture there. So thank you.
I love that call out, by the way. So when candidates are out in the space and they're talking to brands, brands are going to say, I have an absentee or semi-absentee model, or if you're looking for mailbox money, call me. Right. In
Mhm,
my 24 years, I haven't seen a lot of those models work, and it
mhm,
could be semantics, but when you think of absentee, go back to our time in grade school, right? Scott and Tony are absent, absence of body, absence of mind. That's something that will definitely derail a business. With my
100%.
model, I'm not looking for someone to make the donuts. I'm looking for someone that can be the leader in the space, the voice of reason, create a strategy, execute, um, uh, pull the
Hold
best
people
out of their very
accountable.
small people,
Mhm,
keep them
mhm.
accountable,
Yep.
move the business over time, promote their people up or out, and then one day
Mhm,
take a step back and say, I've really grown this business. I've built a ton of equity. Now what? Do I want to pull
mhm,
my chips off the table? Do I want to double down and do five more? Do I want to sell out, move to the Bahamas? With my business, you're going to recognize great returns. You're going to recognize great net income. You're going to recognize equity in the business. You're not going to buy a job, and you're not going to rent a business with my
mhm.
model.
No, I think those are all great call outs. Of course, with the big old asterisk of we cannot guarantee any financial performance for
That's right.
anybody.
That's right.
You got to run the business in your local market. But yeah, no, I think that's really important. So, when you think about 160, I think you said, right? 160 locations. You've got 400 locations sold, 90 franchisees. Is that, did I hear all those right? So there's some serious growth here. When candidates, people who are aspiring business owners are evaluating their own market, what should they look at to determine if their market is a good fit? Like, how will they know? Does Scenthound even fit where I live?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm gonna take a step back.
Hmm.
If you have a candidate, or if you're finding this video somewhere, call Scott. Call Scott first things first. But we will help you unpack the entire opportunity, and that means that I will connect with you. I will get to know you better. I will give you some of the basics of why Sandhound versus all of the amazing opportunities that you and Scott can uncover, and then the one of the very two next steps is a I'm going to get you out a franchise disclosure document, and the document gives you all the info you need because I can't make promises. The document is what it is. And then from there, the very, very, very next step is let's see if this business makes sense in St. Louis, in Minneapolis, in Dallas. And so it starts off with some analysis. And the analysis is all around, do I have the right amount of households, the right amount of population in those areas? Do those consumers and dog parents look like the other folks that are seeing value across the other markets I'm in? And I see 80,000 dogs a month. So, because of the fact that I see 80,000 dogs a month across 162 locations, A, I know exactly what those consumer profiles look like. And then B, I'm sitting on a mound full of data around dogs. I'm now the expert on all symptoms, breeds, etc. So we will go through and say, okay, well, Scott, you live in this marketplace. Here's where we're at. This is what this looks like. Here's the competitive landscape. Here's what commercial real estate looks like. We do a lot of that pre-work to make sure that you're being set up for success. Your success is our success.
And that I think is really critical. I think another thing, people who are serious about owning a business want to do their market research. They want to understand the business they're getting into. And I think that the fact that you're willing to help and assist, right? They shouldn't be afraid. They don't have to be certain that Scenthound's a good fit in their market before they speak with you, right? They
That's right.
don't
That's right.
don't do your own analysis paralysis. Have the conversation, right? Let's see. And you've got, like you said, access to so much data about what a successful marketplace looks like for
That's
this
right.
model. So very good. Love it.
Yeah.
Um, well, so let's jump over a bit to, we talked about the recession resistance of pet spending and the reasons why. Um, but what does that really look like in practice? So we talked about a little bit. Let's dive deeper into this membership model
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
why that holds up or how that holds up in softer economic conditions, right? What have we seen? So first of all, maybe describe a bit about what the membership model looks like and how much of the revenue is recurring revenue percentage wise that you're seeing, and how is that holding up when we see ups and downs in the economy?
Well, yes, and so let me do the latter first. Because my business is focused on health and wellness, I'm now classified as a needs-based business, in the pet space. And I'll give you an example of a wants-based business. A wants-based business is, I want my dog to look and smell good. If I lose my job, if the economy is up and down, if we're gonna go to war with Cuba, I don't know what's going to happen, and so if I need to kind of rein in my budget, I can go to Amazon, I can go to Chewy, and I can buy shampoo, trimmers, clippers, guards. I could probably give my dog a haircut. It'd be a mess, and she'd hate it, but I could probably do it. And so that's because of the fact that I want her to look and smell good. I need her to be healthier. I need her to live longer, and I can't do that on my own. So that's what gives my business. I'm a little more insulated than some of the other businesses out there within the
Mhm.
pet spend space. Now, um, I'm going to give you a quick stat that'll actually give you a little more context. 45% of pet owners spend the same, if not more, on their dog's health care than they spend on themselves. Think about that stat for a minute. And that's important for if the economy's up and down, regardless of that, I got to keep my dog healthy. I'm still going to go to Scent Now, if the grid melts and we're all in the basement in the dark, you're not going to come to Scent. I get that. That's why I'm not bulletproof. With that being said, that also now speaks to the fact, well, if I just graduated from college, I'm 23 years old, I'm making $60,000, $50,000 a year, your business mind as a franchisee may say, Mike, who just graduated, may not be able to afford what I'm offering, right? So let
Mhm.
me bypass Mike. But because of the fact that I'm health and wellness focused versus the look and smell of your dog, I may not make as much money as that person that makes 80, 90, 100 a year or that's retired and has got a nice nest egg, but I have Fluffy like you have Lucy, and because I care about my dog's healthcare, I'm willing to prioritize my spend. Less
Mhm.
Starbucks, less going out
Mhm.
and playing darts and drinking and eating, less trips. I want to make sure that my dog Lucy can live a longer, healthier life. So that's one component. And that's what solves for some of the uncertainty with the market, the ups and downs, recession proof, pandemic resistant. All of those things are now covered by that. So that's the latter. Let's quickly talk about the benefits of the membership. So
Yes.
there are two stakeholders, Scott, in my mind, that benefit from the membership play. Let's
Okay.
quickly talk about the benefit to my dog Maisie. The benefit to
Mhm.
my dog Maisie is that she's going to go to Scenthound once every 30 days ish. And, during that visit, that monthly visit in Minneapolis that may cost, let's say, $49, $59 a month, she's going to get a bath and the trimming of the nails and the ears and the teeth. That way there's some consistent service. And then now
Mhm.
that the iPad came back and said, "Hey, Tony, here's some areas of opportunity for your dog. Let's layer in additional work on her teeth or nails or ears, whatever the iPad says, or a haircut." So now that's the value to my dog, right? Based on
Mhm.
that membership play, she's coming in monthly versus annually. So that's the one
Mhm.
category. Let's quickly in the next 30 seconds talk about why it's beneficial to Scott, the potential franchisee. It's
Mhm.
beneficial to Scott, the franchisee, because roughly 90% of your revenue will come from members. About
Okay.
10% will come from non-members. And then my goal is to retain 90 plus percent of those people on a rolling monthly basis. I'm not going to keep them all, but I'd love to keep them. Like the old
Mhm.
saying, it's cheaper to keep her. And
Mhm.
so that's a huge, huge unlock, which is now creating that reoccurring revenue stream. And then if you look at Scott, I've actually created 3 plus ways you as a franchisee can make money. And the plus is all of the amazing cool things that I'm working on in the background.
This is a
And
like a plus tier membership you're talking about, like a
well,
plus?
all of the really cool initiatives that we think at some point over time we can layer into the business.
Okay.
A wearable collar for dogs that
Mm,
gives a lot more data. Pet
I got you.
insurance
Okay.
partnerships.
Okay.
An e-commerce model. So those are all the things that
Gotcha.
are kind of working in the background, coming down the pike.
Got it.
Today, the three main revenue streams in order are as following. The biggest one is monies coming from membership dues. That's going to represent by far your biggest bucket. 50 to 60% will come from dues from your members. And you'll have X amount of members times 39, 49, $89 a month. By the way,
Mm,
what you charge for your memberships will be 100% based upon where you live. So, what I charge in Des Moines, Iowa, in San Diego, in Miami, in Minneapolis, it'll vary and I will help you figure that out. That's the first thing.
mhm,
The second bucket, the second largest bucket of revenue 30, 35% will come from add on services. And if you're curious as to what some of those add on services may be, a haircut, a blow dry, a
mhm,
de-shed, a demat. As I analyze your dog with the iPad, with the scent
mhm.
check is going to come back and make recommendations for add on services. Now,
Okay.
if you're
Mhm,
thinking, well, Tony, why don't you just bundle in a haircut for every single membership? It's a good thought. It's a good thought. But again, out of the 90 million dogs, less than 10% of dogs require a consistent haircut. So if I have a short hair, I was just talking to a guy the other day that says he's got two huskies. They don't need haircuts, but they need blow dries, right? So if I've got a dog that will never need a haircut and I'm paying for it, I'm going to feel as if I'm being finessed and taken advantage of, cancel,
mhm,
tell my friends these guys are con artists, right? So I
mhm,
want to avoid that. I want to customize the approach based upon what your dog needs. The
mhm.
very, 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 very last driver of revenue, the smallest bucket by design, product sales.
Okay.
10% or less of revenue will come from product sales. And every product you'd ever buy for your dog at Scenthound will be 100% health and wellness driven. You would never come into Scenthound and buy a Halloween costume for your dog. Those are the three
Okay.
ways that my
Okay.
folks make money today. Yeah.
That no, that's a great synopsis, right? And I think it helps somebody who's evaluating how does this business actually work, helps them see where the revenue would come from. So that's great. Now to get there, let's talk for just a minute about, the publicly available knowledge. Like what's an investment look like? How when someone thinks about starting a Scenthound franchise, what kind of financial commitment, general range, just so we can get an order of magnitude here.
Yeah, so within the FDD or so for your listeners who haven't heard the term FDD, the FDD is a franchise disclosure document. 23 items that basically it's a book or bible of us. What do we do?
Mhm,
What are we offering? How many locations have closed? How many bankruptcies do we have? What's the litigation? And just so
mhm,
no one drops off the call after hearing that, we have closed 0 locations and had 0 failures. 0 bankruptcies tied to an executive or to a franchisee that's tied their hitch to our brand. And I've got 0 litigation, meaning I've got 0 franchisees suing me, and I've got 0 dog parents that are so upset with location ABC they're suing. Now, that doesn't mean that things haven't happened or won't happen in center. They're
sure.
dogs. We love them,
Mhm,
but we don't
mhm,
speak dog, right? And so at the end of the day,
mhm,
it's my job as the franchisor to mitigate that risk. So those are
mhm,
the few items I look at as I'm going through the FDD. Your very specific question, what's the range? Item 7 will give you a range of low to high. Three to $500,000 is a range that we're seeing, and we can somewhat manipulate that. A
uh-huh,
smaller footprint based on the market you're in by getting the landlord to pay for more of the build out. So if you heard that number and you're thinking, well, I was hoping to be on the lower range of things, let's see what your market looks like. That's the
mhm,
first thing. But even better yet, Scenthound is SBA approved, Small Business Admin approved. And what's great about that, Scott, is that for those who want and for those who qualify, which I see 90-ish% of my people go down this path, an SBA will typically cover, let me be conservative,
mhm.
85 to 80% of the investment. So with a
Okay.
15 to 20% injection, that's what I'm seeing. Now, what I look at from there, I look at item 19. And item 19 will give you a range of how much you can make running the business. I call out net income versus EBITDA or EBITDAR. So my numbers factor in payroll and your rent. That way, if you truly do want to keep your job as an executive or as a salesperson or as whatever you're doing in life, keep your job,
Mhm.
hire a manager. My numbers do call that out. And again, all of that information is embedded into the Scenthound franchise disclosure document.
Excellent. No, that's a great summary. So 300 to 500,000 for to open a location, and there are various levers and knobs you turn to adjust that depending on the market and the size and all that. So good, good.
That's right. That's right.
Now any franchisee who joins the family,
Mhm.
they're buying into a system, right? They're not just getting a brand and a logo. There's a whole system and support. Tell us a little bit about what does the franchisee support look like? What's behind them when they
Yeah.
become a part of the Scent Hound family?
What I offer at Scenthound, I'm going to start off. It's going to be a sandwich. Um, Support coach on the front end, support coach on the back end. In the middle, I'll help you find your location. I will activate a commercial real estate broker. I'll help you negotiate. I'll help you get to the table so you can sign from the lease in your marketplace. Um, I have funding and financing options through partners of ours. We work with the SBA source. I help you with marketing. I help you with technology. I can help you find a general contractor. They'll find a team. I will help you design it. I will fly out my team for the grand opening to help you find the workers to finish up the final amount of the pre-sales. And then again, all of that is held nicely together with a coach. And
Mhm.
for the record, you'll always have access to a business coach if you're a Scenttown franchisee. Certain
Okay.
brands, and I will never ever call out a brand that does this. I know some.
Mhm.
They'll say, "Look, Scott, welcome to the brand. Tell us where you land. We'll ship out your equipment, find your real estate, find your loan, and then if you have questions around pre-sales, around competition, around technology, download the manual and find it yourself." No,
Mm,
I don't think that works.
mhm,
I think that again, this sounds very cliched, Scott, but if you become a franchisee, your success is my success. I don't want to micromanage you. I don't want to hover over and big brother you, but I certainly want to make sure that as you go through the acclimation period, that you get it, and then things are out of tracking. And then one day you're going to wake up 3, 6 months in and say, okay, I got this. I understand
mhm.
this. Can I open up my second location? And I'm going to say, let's go.
And so, who knows how many years in advance someone's listening to this, that we're not talking about future years, but
Right. Right.
the reality is, I think a big part of the reason why you've seen that historically, 'cause it's very safe to look back, is probably to say that the support you give to help people launch, to help people be successful, to give them the coaching, to give them access to that big mushroom cloud of support that you described. I mean, that's a huge part in the success of a new franchisee. So thanks for describing that really well.
Yeah, and I do I do want to call one last quick thing on that. If you look at so you as a candidate, if you're watching this video, your responsibility is to invest in the brand, roll up your sleeves, be engaged, and let's co-author this thing. My
Mm,
responsibility as the franchisor is to get better every single year. And what I mean by that is what worked last year, 2 years ago, that may not be it. And I'll give you 3 examples. If you were to have come to us 2.5 years ago, I would have helped you find a 2,000 plus square foot business or
mm.
location. Today, fast forward to 2026, I think a good footprint is 1,000 square feet. So I've now
Okay.
shaved the space in half, if
Mhm,
not plus. A
mhm,
couple years ago, we were opening up with too many employees. Now that I've got a good idea on cancellations and no shows and how long it takes to do certain activities and services, I can be a lot more surgical with how many people I need today and then grow and scale as you grow the business. And then
mhm,
I've gotten really, really good at marketing, right? Back in the day, it was all things digital because grassroots and traditional marketing is dead. You kind of have to do it all. A little bit of
mhm.
traditional,
Okay.
a lot of grassroots. Digital is going to be the main driver. And then the last thing that we've learned, because I'm a membership model, pre-sales is key. We
Mm,
have to hit and nail our pre-sales process. Well, Tony, I don't know how to sell. Let's find a manager that can do it. I don't have a script. I've got one. So those are the things going back to the fact that it's my responsibility as the brand to grow and evolve and get better every year.
mhm. I love all that. So, we're kind of coming down to the toward the end of this discussion, which I've really enjoyed, and I have 100 more questions I could ask, but we're going
Okay.
to just narrow it down to the last couple. So, first of all, just stepping back from the brand for a minute. Let's put the Scenthound brand and why we love the Scenthound brand. Pure business evaluation, what would you say is the argument? What are the differentiators? What's the argument for why this works? Independent of the brand, why do you think this is a good business?
I think that we're in a space that we're seeing a bunch of growth, right? So to look out across consumer spend, I don't know of a lot of verticals that are seeing this type of growth, right? Again, I
Mhm,
mentioned it earlier, but we're seeing this hockey stick type of growth. The membership component is massive, and the reason why is because if you look at today, 2026, we have memberships to the gym. We've got memberships to buy bagels, coffee, tan, wax, to get our vehicles washed, right? And so now
mhm.
I feel like people now understand the fact that this makes sense and there are benefits to having the membership. First in line, discounts, getting all that consistent data. So this type of membership now in 2026 really, really makes sense. And just so I'm being transparent, you're going to have people in markets that say, Tony, I am membership fatigued. I don't want one more membership. No,
Mhm.
fine. You can still come in. I'll still love you at Scenthound. So I'm flexible there. But again, most of the revenue will come from members. And then, last but not least, whether it's what I'm doing or another innovative brand is doing, if you look at the true innovative brands out there, Scenthound's a true innovator. We didn't want to be classified in the traditional grooming space because it's a commodity. We wanted to come up with something that says this is a space that no one has done. It's brand new. We're creating this category. We're trailblazing into a new space. We're adding in the membership component, and so that's a benefit. And then you're going to have people out there that say, "Hey, Tony, I love working out. I love health and wellness. I love my dog. What if I have a business model that checks off both of those? You love health and
Mhm.
wellness, you love your dog. I'm going to combine both of those. So, a great big mashup of a few different things, but that and the fact that we're just constantly evolving and changing, I think that's what makes what we're doing a little unique compared to other brands and other concepts today.
Great. No, appreciate that. Appreciate that. Um, I guess one last question to wrap everything all together. Here's a chance to give you an opportunity to step up on a soapbox if you want to shout something to the world. People who are looking at starting a business are look at many options, right?
Mhm.
So they got a lot of things coming in, lot of input, a lot of data. There was one thing somebody could carry with them about Scenthound after this discussion today, what's one thing you'd like to make sure someone knows about the concept?
If you look at what a small business does to a person, a family, it's amazing, right? My business, it's gonna be pre-baked, it's gonna be pre-made, business in a box. I'm gonna help with everything that I mentioned earlier. I'm gonna set you up. I'm gonna help you grow. I'm gonna help you be successful. And then as you grow and make X amount of money per year, with my business at Scenthound, you can, when you're ready, you can hop out of corporate America, you can scale, you can grow, you can build equity. And then on a Wednesday, as today is Wednesday, you can open up your laptop and say, well, my business is going really well. I'm growing, I'm scaling, we're getting better. I think I'm going to go play 9 rounds or 18 rounds, right? So that's really the benefit of what I'm offering is be involved, be engaged. Let's create a plan for you to have more freedom, more flexibility, create some equity, create a legacy play for you and your family. That's what we offer at Scenthound.
I love that. Tony, this has been a great and enjoyable conversation for me. Thank you so much for taking
Likewise.
time to spotlight Scenthound, giving candidates, aspiring owners a real look at what your opportunity is all about. I really appreciate you for being here. So there it is, Scenthound, a membership based business built around routine dog wellness in a category that's considered needs based, not wants based. If this business feels worth a closer look, I encourage you to bring some intention to how you pursue it. Brands like Scenthound, with a differentiated model and active growth, they attract serious candidates, and the ones who stand out are the ones who show up prepared. And that's where I come in. We'll work through whether this is genuinely the right fit for you. We'll get clear on your financial position and make sure you're ready to have a productive conversation with the brand. Please book a no cost 20-minute call with me and take the next step in your exploration of business ownership the right way. I'm Scott Elliott, and this has been another episode of Franchise Spotlight.